125 positive reviews. 98% of critics recommend it on OpenCritic. It has 45 tens. I'm Job Gilroy, and this is Reviews in Review, God of War Ragnarok. In 2018, God of War got the Neil Gaiman or Alan Moore treatment when Sony's Santa Monica Studios took the world's angriest Greek god, plopped him in the middle of the Norse mythology, and gave him a son that he didn't seem to want to look after. It was Kratos' Logan moments. They took a well-known character, they put him in an alien situation, and they used the confusion for the character to explore something deeper. By all accounts, it worked. Most people enjoyed God of War 2018. It was a very well-received game, and if it hadn't come out alongside a massive, sprawling open world filled with unexpected adventures like Red Dead Redemption 2, it probably would have been the unanimous game of the year. And so 4 years later, we get God of War Ragnarok, which does basically all of the same things. And if it hadn't released alongside a massive sprawling open world filled with unexpected adventure in Elden Ring, it, by all accounts, by 45 tens, would probably have been the unanimous game of the year. It's received such overwhelmingly positive reviews that we're in a bit of a tricky position here, right? Because the way that this works, the way that I've put this together, the Reviews and Reviews format, having more than half of the reviews set at above a 9, above an 8.5 even, above an 8 even, means that the concept of low and medium and high, if it looked silly in previous videos, it looks really silly now. Nevertheless, what we're trying to do is create a picture of the range of reviews, and so we'll keep it. We'll keep that format. We'll still do low, medium, high, and unscored. But what we're going to do this week is switch the order. We're going to end on a high note, the top reviews. We're going to start with the low ones. Mostly because there's bleed through between the everything above the lowest score, but also to sort of reflect the general feeling about this game a little bit better. We're still using Metacritic. We're still using OpenCritic, but we've gone back to using also Metacritic. I think the readability on it is just a little bit better for people, and also more people go to Metacritic, and so what we're trying to do is give people readability on reviews. Why would we stray from there? It's a strong point. All right, let's begin. The lowest score for God of War Ragnarok comes by way of IGN Korea. We've got Sanghyun Bae wrote a 6 out of 10 review. We're making an exception on this one. Typically, I have avoided the language other than English reviews solely because I'm afraid that I can't do them justice. But this is a clear outlier in terms of the reviews of God of War Ragnarok, and it's also it makes some really salient points. So yeah, we're going to include Sanghyun Bae's review in the list. I'm going to ignore the translation elements because that's not on Sanghyun under any circumstances. So I'm not necessarily going to analyze the review part, just the analysis part. Okay, let's take a look at the pull quote on OpenCritic. The game's core design lacked innovation compared to the prequel, and the story also suffered from a lack of creativity. While the game experience was well coordinated and wholesome in the last time, everything in this Ragnarok seemed to be a series of soulless modules aligned. If the developer's aim were to safely deliver experience of the prior success, there would have been other ways to deliver it in a better, fresh manner. Sadly, the game was insufficient to be felt as a new representation. Rather, it felt like a DLC of the previous title instead. Obviously, translation software had a rough time on that one. Let's try to break it down anyway, try to get to the meaning behind what they had to say. Lacked innovation compared to the prequel. Obviously, in this case, when they say prequel, they mean the prequel, like the translation software is referring to the previous game in this series, right? So they're talking about God of War 2018, and Sanghyun feels that Ragnarok is too similar. Didn't really innovate on that sequel enough. A series of soulless modules aligned might refer to the feeling that Ragnarok is sort of constructed to fit a mold of what a God of War game should be, I guess. You know, instead of being its own thing, it's an attempt to, I guess, you know, from last week's Modern Warfare reviews and review, the idea of a cover version of a song or a greatest hits cover band type thing. And the final sentence, that doesn't feel so much like a sequel as it does expansive DLC. It sums up Sanghyun's feelings, I think, quite succinctly, like more than the rest of the paragraph combined. Really, hard for me to say if this is a good review, but like the analysis is great. I think they really laser in on what it is they didn't like about the game or thought could be better. The internet did not like this review at all. There are segments of any audience that won't like any negative review. Some people can't take criticism. Some people just want happy thoughts out in the universe. But when it's that outlier, the reaction is always so much worse. It's so much worse. You can trust me on this because I've been the outlier a number of times, and believe me, it's worse. And Sony, PlayStation games in particular, have a very rabid fan base. I think maybe Xbox fans have gotten used to not having a top tier world killer first party exclusive. But I wonder somewhat whether when they do get that killer, how they'll go with negative reviews, because it'll be the first one in a long time for them. But as it stands right now, Sony fanboys lose their minds over this sort of thing. Why it's worse is complicated, I guess. You know, some people attach their identity to liking games or liking specific games, and they take the idea that a game being, like saying a game is bad, as a personal attack, as an affront to their core, right? And some people have very limited disposable income, and so when they find out that they pre-ordered a game that one person says is not good, they feel like they're being accused of making bad purchasing decisions, and they take that personally. And some people are just irredeemable dipshits. None of these are valid reasons for sending people death threats, but it helps to understand where at least some of them are coming from, I guess, you know? Really, we should want more low reviews. I've said this for years, but what we should want to see is scores across the entire gamut, the entire range of numbers. Not just as low as a 6, but like the 2s and 3s, the people who absolutely hate God of War Ragnarok. I want to see those reviews, right? If they're well constructed and well reasoned. Let's see more of that. Anyway, Sanghyun copped a lot of shit over their review. Death threats, racist garbage. The unhinged masses latched onto this review and they went to town. And it shouldn't have happened like that. I'm not going to take a quote from the review itself because Google Translate makes it difficult to really, I use those paragraphs to, like, I have read the translated review, and I think you should. The link is in the description below to go have a look. Order the link to the translated version is in the description below, released into English. I think you should definitely give it a look. There is some insight in there, but more salient, I think, a point is Sanghyun left a comment on a YouTube video. The YouTube video is titled "PlayStation Fanboys Enraged at God of War Ragnarok Review. IGN Korea is full of salt," which is obviously outrage bait itself. You know, like these sorts of videos exist solely to rile people up, which is just stupid to me. But Sanghyun obviously felt they didn't have an avenue to share their feelings, and so yeah, let's have a look at a comment, or some of the comment that they left on that video. "I believe that varied opinions can develop this industry. I may continue to write reviews from a different perspective, and I want to tell this to everyone. Just because I write a review with a different perspective doesn't change your gaming experience. Indeed, even it can't ruin the game. Play your game and write your honest subjective review or opinion. We were not born to be forced to think the same way." And that is the crazy thing about all of this. And I've had this thought every single time I've rustled the jimmies of the masses. But a negative review doesn't make a game worse. Like, a game getting a lower score than you expected doesn't actually change the gameplay at all. It's still the same game. It's still, like, you will have the same experience regardless of what score it gets. If you can't have that same experience, you need to exercise some deep self-reflection. You need to go away and really look at who you are as a person, because one random games critic should not be able to spoil your experience by slapping a slightly lower increment of 10 on a review of a game that you didn't even have to read. You know? It's hard for me to review this review, being that it's in another language. One day, I will figure out some way to get over that speed hump, because I don't want to restrict reviews from this process just because they're in a different language. It's tricky for me because we're analyzing language, right? And like this entire thing is based on analyzing language, so yeah, it's tough. But there is a lot of good insight in the review. I'm just worried it's up for interpretation based on my interpretation of the translated text, you know, so I'm a bit worried about how I would go about that necessarily. But it's an important review in the discussion of God of War Ragnarok. I think more games should have got, more reviews should have landed somewhere around it, but they didn't. And I'm really stoked that Sanghyun had the guts to write their honest opinion and stand by their honest opinion despite the backlash. All right, our next lowest review, and it's not a low review as I already explained, but it's our next selection from the lowest of the range. It comes from NME. They gave the game a 4 out of 5 in a review written by Jake Tucker. Let's have a look. God of War Ragnarok is a good game, but never particularly surprising. Shifting the focus onto Atreus' story feels like a smart move, and the universe painted here is as beautiful narratively as it is graphically. But some players may feel like they have ridden this ride before. Reviewing sequels is tricky, but sequels to smash hits, that's so much trickier. Because the first game usually did something wild and unexpected, and that's how they grabbed everyone's attention. That's how they blew up in the first place. And so when you're doing a sequel, you've got to decide whether you do something wild and unexpected again, or if you give people more of exactly what they want. It seemed to me, based on that pull, that Jake wanted something wild and unexpected, not necessarily more of the same. And while they're happy with what they got, they're disappointed they didn't get more. It makes sense, you know, everyone has different expectations, right? And everyone's going to come at this game in different ways. And Jake, I don't know. Jake thought it would be more than it is. Let's take a look at a sentence or a paragraph from the review itself. The only disappointing thing about God of War Ragnarok is that, from a mechanical point of view, it doesn't do a whole lot to innovate. Compared to the last game, you'll still do a lot of fighting, grumping, and solving puzzles. A pet peeve in game development is breaking a rope to make things fall, and you'll be doing that in Ragnarok more than you could possibly imagine. See also pulling things out of the way and shuffling around on ledges. It's the sort of thing that is the bread and butter of a movement-based adventure game like Uncharted, but here I kind of just wish I could be using that time to take my very specific set of skills, wanton murder, god killer, being bald and angry, and just wade into more fights. I don't super follow the rope thing, if I'm being honest. Is it like Jake's pet peeve, the breaking, or is it a game development in general pet peeve? Because I've never heard it before. Or is it like I don't know, some people just like protecting ropes, hate seeing them damaged type thing? I'm not sure. But I thought this review, it went pretty well. Like Jake sums up their feelings quite well. Like they do a good job of explaining what it is that's really holding back the game in their eyes. Too much romance, not enough human killing, right? Maybe not romance, too much family time, not a human killing. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting point. I think this was an easy read. I think maybe a little shallower than I would have liked, but I get the feeling that Jake alluded to depth, alluded to deep analysis. So I get the feeling that maybe NME tries to keep it pretty high level in terms of analysis, maybe for the audience that they're going for. All right, now we move to the middle of the road with Comicbook.com, giving the game a 4.5 out of 5 in a review written by Logan Moore. Despite having a couple of problems with God of War Ragnarok, it's hard for me to say that the game is anything less than excellent. Even with high expectations, Ragnarok ended up being a game that I thoroughly enjoyed, from its bombastic opening to its character-driven conclusion. Some issues that the previous God of War entry had became more apparent to me with Ragnarok, but otherwise, this is a game that I believe fans are without a doubt going to be happy with. Right off the bat, that paragraph doesn't seem to me like it should be in a review with a 4.5 out of 5 on it. Like, it doesn't belong in a 4.5, a 9 out of 10 review. That's a lot of wording to say that Logan didn't enjoy the game as much as they expected, but that fans will like it. And I don't know, it's a very negative tone for a conclusive paragraph, in my opinion. But hey, every site does scores differently. Every reviewer interprets their site's scoring system differently. So it's hard. It's hard with scores. Maybe that's how a 9 reads on comicbook.com. Let's grab a paragraph and see how it goes. Something that began to annoy me more with God of War Ragnarok compared to the previous entry is that of the gear system. While I was largely fine with the process of obtaining and upgrading armor, abilities, and other items in the previous God of War, Ragnarok started to frustrate me with this system. Although I still like the sense of progression that Ragnarok has when it comes to upgrading Kratos and his gear over time, the gear system itself is far too cumbersome to navigate. Furthermore, it's hard to ever know which items that are in your inventory are the best of the best, even though the game does try to offset this with an auto-equip feature. There are so many decisions to make at any one point in time that I often also wondered if I was spending my resources in the wisest of ways when it came to upgrades. If Ragnarok featured a more streamlined system that works in this same manner, I think the game would have been much better for it. Much better, but a 9 out of 10, a 4.5 out of 10 doesn't really provide a lot of wiggle room for a much better in that situation. I actually like this review, but under no circumstances does it does the score it have reflect what this review is trying to say. The closing paragraph and the review definitely seem in lockstep with one another, and then the score came in from out of nowhere. And like I said, every reviewer does scores differently, right? Maybe this is what a 4.5 or a 9 out of 10 looks like to Logan or Comicbook.com, but there are uglier reasons for score inflation, and what happened to IGN Korea's Sanghyun Bae is a great example of one of those reasons. Not everyone wants to have their Twitter DMs and email and Facebook messages filled with lunatics sending them death threats or hate messages or doxing them or anything like that, right? No, people aren't interested in that kind of stuff, right? I don't want it. I do my reviews my way because I am who I am, but it's the part of the job that I loathe the most, and we get paid pennies to do what we do. When you break down, if you do a 40-hour game review, a game that takes 40 hours to review, and then you write 3,000 words, and then you get paid what? I get paid more than what most sites pay for my reviews, actually. And it's still, if you crunch it down to dollars per hour, it's so deeply below minimum wage that it would make you spit. And to then get death threats and all that kind of shit, yeah, I understand why you might pump up a score so that you could avoid that. I get it. It makes sense. Scores don't matter anyway, right, Job? So what does it matter? Do whatever. The number is the number. Do whatever helps you avoid as much hate as humanly possible, I guess. The other way to go about it would be for everyone to just start docking 5 points from every goddamn review that they do. Nothing gets over a 5 for a year, and see how everyone feels about it. But I don't know. There'd probably be actual murders. Anyway, this was a low review in a 9's clothing, but I find it hard to blame Logan for pulling that move when you can actually see what happens when you give a game the score it deserves in real time happening to Sanghyun Bae. Outside of the score being off, I thought it was a well-written review. I think they made some good points about what they didn't love about God of War Ragnarok, what they thought could be improved. It's definitely worth a read. Give it a check it out. All right, the next one on the list is VideoChums with AJ Maciejewski. Gave the game a 91 out of 100. First of all, VideoChums is a fantastic name for a website. I love it. VideoChums. That's awesome. It feels so friendly. Everything in God of War Ragnarok is carefully crafted to create a superb experience, both cinematically and when it comes to gameplay. It may not break any new ground in the world of gaming, but what's here is still undeniably awesome. More reviews should use the word awesome. Wow, no word so immediately grabs me and says, hey, this person loves this shit. I liked it. AJ had me prepped for a very positive review with that grab at the end. Here's a paragraph I liked almost all of. Another aspect of God of War Ragnarok that I thoroughly enjoyed was its puzzles. Every one of them is practical, so you really have to use your wits to accomplish things like hold giant doors open, create bridges to cross gaps, and activate nodes by deflecting axe throws. The balance of exploration, combat, and puzzles is impeccable as well. With that being said, there were more than a few times when I found myself wandering around aimlessly, even with a character giving me verbal hints. Thankfully, you can enable accessibility options that actually help a bit with puzzle solutions. I would have been completely lost without enabling those from time to time. Sweaty smiley face emoji. I don't really like the use of smiley faces in reviews. I guess that's a personal thing. I'm an old curmudgeon who, no smiley faces. I'm still raging against the idea that every goddamn video, every review has to be a video. So we'll just have to push past that. The rest of this paragraph I enjoyed. It's very rare to see a reviewer admit to having fault. A lot of the time, critics feel like they have to put up this front like they are the greatest gamer to have ever existed, and AJ doesn't. They own the fact that they needed some help, and they're stoked that God of War Ragnarok was able to have the accessibility options to help them out. I think it's a great way to talk about something in the game, something available in the game that improves the experience, and B, refreshing to see them admit vulnerability. It just doesn't happen. It makes it feel that much more personal. I want to see critics who are. I want to see reviews from critics who are bad at games, good at games, have never ever seen a game before, just got unfrozen from an ice flow, and their caveman ass has never seen technology before, and then you slap a controller in their hands and make them play a game, and then get them to write a review. As long as it's well written, I want to read that review. Damn it, that's the dream from the entire spectrum of gamers. Anyway, if there was a fault to this review, AJ went very hard at the idea of not spoiling anything in this review, and I think it came at the cost of some depth of analysis. I think they may have tried too hard to avoid spoiling things, and if they had allowed themselves a little bit more leeway in that aspect, then the analysis that is there might have been reflected a little bit better, because they start some points and cut them off quite abruptly. And having played through the entire game, I know what they're talking about, but I think if I hadn't, it would leave me a little bit underwhelmed. All right, now we move on to the unscored review. I think it's in a good place, sort of before our final stretch. So I'm happy with it going just after the middle of the road reviews. I picked this at random, and I was planning on putting it where it is, no matter what. But British GQ got Sam White to write their review, and it is glowing, as you'll soon find out. In the end, the growth of Kratos and Atreus as parent and child, protege and apprentice is mirrored in the game's making, and the game is all the better for it. When God of War reboot genius and maestro Cory Barlog announced he would not be directing Ragnarok, there was fear and worry from players. Would the sequel surpass the first? Could anyone else fill Barlog's shoes? The proof is here. There is a moment in Ragnarok where Kratos realizes he needs not to show Atreus to survive, but how to live. The result is the PS5's crowning glory to date. By relinquishing control, trusting in Ragnarok's director Eric Williams and the rest of the team, by giving them stewardship but not domineering their destination, the growth of Sony Santa Monica is right there on the screen. If this review had a score, it'd be a 10. This is the 10th review I have read. I guess it does help that we're going from lowest up, but I know what's coming, and it doesn't get any tennier than this one. This is Sam White. Love this game. Let's see what else they've got. A few hours into our 36-hour playthrough, the full craft of Ragnarok was revealed. It is enormous with variety, depth, and seamlessly designed connective tissue that leads essential quests into optional tasks, into other discoveries, and back out again. This was similar in some ways in the first game, but the breadth and scope of Ragnarok means that achieving this with such fluidity is masterful. Yeah, Sam White loved this game. They love God of War. They love Ragnarok as well. I love reading someone's unchecked adoration, and that's what this is. This is a love letter to God of War Ragnarok. The passion on display here is phenomenal. Now we move on to the high reviews. The first one, the first cab off the rank. Have I already used that? I don't know. The first horse past the post comes from Checkpoint Gaming. They gave it a 10 out of 10. All of the highs are 10 out of 10s. Even our outscored is the 10 out of 10. Luke Mitchell wrote this review. God of War Ragnarok is more of the epic God of War that we loved in 2018, but it builds on those foundations in every single way to create a compelling and addicting adventure in its own right that improves across the board. Combat is furious and intense, exploring every nook and cranny of each Norse realm is captivating, and clever puzzles are seamlessly intertwined with abilities that change, evolve, and make you feel like a master of all crafts. Narratively, the heartfelt and fascinating story is supported by incredible writing that makes its whole cast of characters shine, and the production values are through the roof, with a gorgeous soundtrack and visuals that push the limits and stun at every turn. Santa Monica Studios have again managed to create something truly memorable and entirely special. Those sentences are kind of long, and I hate the word addicting, with a fire rage that would make Kratos sort of wince. But otherwise, I thought this was a really good summary paragraph. I really enjoyed this one. As summaries go, this is a review in and of itself. It's enough words that you could actually probably see it in a newspaper as a review. I think it's obvious Luke adored this game. If we were to put Luke and British GQ's Sam White in an arena to make them fight it to the death to see who liked it more, it might be close to a stalemate. At least if they were powered on love. I don't know the vital statistics on either of these fighters. So, let's take a paragraph from the review. The rhythm of exploring hidden locations, finding Mjolnir chests and unlocking them with a rune puzzle, helping restless spirits and discovering hidden goodies feels like slipping back into a cozy and loved pair of pajamas. Considering how God of War 2018 established its universe so strongly, expecting these foundations to be drastically rocked wouldn't have made a lot of sense. Giant puzzle areas with plenty of moving parts to find the solution with a sprinkling of combat in between is a formula that works, and there's a great balance in terms of difficulty, allowing for plenty of aha moments as you progress and complete them. I think framing the idea of Ragnarok's similarities to God of War 2018 as sort of like a cozy, familiar pair of pajamas is a really warm way to talk about something that other people felt was a negative, right? The really effusive reviews of God of War Ragnarok all feel that the familiarity is a strength of the game, whereas the less ecstatic reviews obviously wanted something beyond, something more, and so that's what we wind up with. I would, I don't know. I'd read a follow up. Luke hamstrung themselves a little bit trying to avoid spoilers, and I would read a follow-up where they were untethered from the restrictions to talk about everything God of War, but I would beg them to keep their sentences to under 30 words, because some of those sentences are just too long. They're too long for me. One of those was like 60 words. It's crazy stuff. Anyway, our final review on our list is from PlayStation Universe. It is a 10 out of 10. It comes from by way of John Paul Jones. God of War Ragnarok is the perfect sequel. A carefully iterative offering that beautifully maintains the essence of 2018's Game of the Year while making meaningful improvements to augment its already stellar combat and progression systems. God of War Ragnarok is a meaty and deeply emotional epic that effortlessly secures its place as one of the best games on PS5 and a surefire Game of the Year candidate. Alright, I would like to apologize to Luke Mitchell from Checkpoint Gaming for criticizing their 43-word long sentence. I am now wondering if there is an actual scientific explanation for the link between writing long as balls sentences and having a really positive experience with God of War Ragnarok. That was 2 sentences, I think. 2 sentences, and one of them was 6 words long. Bananas stuff. We need more punctuation, okay? You're not Cormac McCarthy. You can't get away with this. Let's see if it continues in the review paragraph. Away from the visual side of things, Sony's current gen console also brings other palpable technical benefits to God of War Ragnarok. Loading times are now, thankfully, much swifter than they ever were before, while DualSense haptic feedback is beautifully employed, as every oar stroke comes through the pad and the adaptive triggers lend the appropriate heft and resistance to every axe swing. I think this is the only review I read that mentioned the DualSense feedback. I played Ragnarok and I barely noticed it, but I think that, the rumble features are pretty good, especially when it's doing that heartbeat thing. But yeah, I don't know about the axe swing thing. I think you can count on a website with PlayStation its name, though, to actually really reflect upon every single thing that the PlayStation 5 can do. This is a little bit more granular a review, because they're focused on the PlayStation. I think it's good, and that's why it's good to read more than one review, a wide range of reviews, because you will get things out of those reviews that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. So, like I said, granular, an exceptionally detailed review. John Paul went over literally everything they could think of. Again, I'd prefer shorter sentences, but otherwise I actually thought this was a really good review. I thought Checkpoints was a good review as well. I don't know if I said it. I think I was too busy clowning about. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I think it's wonderful that these people are so excited for this game, so happy for this game experience, and they want to share it with the world. I think they did a really good job of doing that. For our conclusion, I think the main takeaway for these reviews is that if you liked God of War 2018, you'll probably like God of War Ragnarok. If you didn't play God of War 2018, you should play that game first. Absolutely. I think you definitely need to. But yeah, these reviews tell us that, there isn't anything particularly new, but it's a matter of mindset. If you go in expecting more of God of War 2018, then what you'll get is exactly what you want. If you, the critics who went in wanting a evolution that would be worthy of a number 2 on the title were disappointed. And those who went in expecting Sanghyun Bae in their 6 out of 10 review sort of said it as if it was a bad thing, an expansive DLC, right? But if that's what you want, then it's hard to be disappointed, especially because graphically, God of War Ragnarok looks even better again than God of War 2018, and so it's definitely going to look spectacular. It's just going to play quite a lot like the game that you would have played 4 years ago. One thing that I noticed in every single review I read, all of them, even the positive ones, mentioned that the pacing felt off in some way or another. So that's interesting, right? Across the board, the pacing seemed off. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The game has a problem with pacing that even the extremely positive reviews didn't ignore. The final major takeaway, I think, is if someone writes a negative review of a game, it doesn't make the game any better or worse for you. It's just an analysis of that person's experience of the game. It doesn't reflect your experience. And in an ideal world, we would have more negative reviews, not less. And yeah, if you feel the need to send a person who wrote a negative review a death threat or hate mail, you're, a piece of shit, and you need to get your life together. Thanks for watching. I think this one went pretty well. It might be a little bit long, so I'll try to wrap this up pretty quick. Go and read all of the reviews. They're all linked in the description below. Hopefully the chapters work for you so you can skip to wherever you want. What else? If you want to hear my thoughts on God of War Ragnarok, there's no review, but you can go listen to the GAPodcast. You can get that at the GAPodcast.com or on whatever podcast reading RSS feed app you use. The episode that came out this week and the episode from last week are pretty descriptive of how I feel about the game. And yeah, I think that's about it. That wasn't it. Due to some technical difficulties, I needed to tap in my good man GrizGaming for some of his God of War footage. That's the footage you've seen throughout this video. Go and check out his channel. He did a review of it as well. It's not a Metacritic, so I haven't reviewed his review, but it's a very good review, especially if you like great analysis and literally the best puns in the game. So I will, I think, link his channel just here. Go give him a look. He's got way more subscribers than I do, so I don't know what he's going to get out of this. But yeah, check that out. And yeah, next week. Oh, well, I mean, on the other side, right, over here, I'll try to do one of my reviews in review videos, Modern Warfare 2 or Bayonetta. And yeah, next week, I'm not sure what we'll do, but we'll work something out. And I think that's about it. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.